we have to start with the barn burner in Madison Square Garden, one of the 20th so far in this postseason. Knicks 130, Pacers 121. And my first thought is just the Knicks have some dogs. Like every single game, it seems like it comes down to the Knicks just making those extra plays, those offensive rebounds, those get on the floor burn, Tibbsian style plays. And yet again, DiVincenzo, Hart, all those guys came through for them.
He's Italian. No, it's kind of crazy to watch where, Reggie and them are calling, and Stan Van Gundy, they're pointing out that the Knicks strategy every single fourth quarter is to literally bludgeon the opponent on the offensive glass and give the ball to Jalen Brunson and get the hell up out the way. And this game was no exception. The crazy thing, too, is that the Pacers went into halftime with a nice lead. And I thought the first half of this game is the first time I saw the Knicks get out-efforted this entire postseason. The Pacers were like a step ahead on everything in transition. Their passing was so crisp in the half court. Like they were kind of dissecting the Knicks' defense in the first half. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Then, of course, Brunson, which I'm sure we'll get into, goes out with a bad foot, misses the entire second quarter. It's like, oh, man, hold on. This might be the tide of the series shifting, and then inevitably Brunson comes back, has another magnificent second quarter, has a dominant fourth quarter, is every bit the closer of I'm out of superlatives with like what this guy is doing every single fourth quarter, just getting it done. And these guys, managed to get another win. They won by 9. I think the score is a little bit exaggerating how dominant they were. This was a tight game basically the entire way for 90-something% of the game. But, man, you just got to tip your hat to this group.
For sure. And the contrast felt very much was like do you have it early or do you have it late? And I do think the Pacers have had that going in both games where they're hitting the offensive glass in the first quarter hard. And in the fourth quarter, it's a bunch of guys standing around and an offense that's not really going anywhere, versus the Knicks have that combination where they're playing super hard. They are bludgeoning guys. They are battling for every loose ball and every offensive rebound they can get their hands on, but they're also keeping their heads. They pull down the rebound and then they're looking to wheel and deal. They're trying to find the open man. They're not trying to force anything, even in these like pressure-packed, chaotic situations. And the fact that you can have it both ways, where you can be that kind of gamer and play that hard all in those moments, it's how you get through games like this, even when you're missing like half of your lineup.
Yeah. Halliburton looked alive for the first time in maybe the entire playoffs. He looked like the Halliburton of old. He was moving. He had 6 shots the entire game in game 1. He was 4 for 8 in the first quarter. So clearly he made a conscious effort to come out, try to do what he typically had been doing. In the third quarter, disappeared like magic. And I think part of it, honestly, is that Brunson came back. Like it felt like both MSG and the team just sparked in a way that we've seen before, where there's just like this magic going on with this team and that atmosphere, and they all kind of rallied back. And you saw those guys start to click into place a little bit more than they had been. They were a little out of sync when Brunson was out of there. Like, I don't want to just chalk it up to just like the dark arts, but Waz, you've been in MSG plenty of times. Like, it does feel like something's going on there.
They just have just a special link to Jalen Brunson. One of my Knick fan homies dubbed him the savior just now.
Not KD.
This game. What was that?
Not KD. I thought KD was the savior.
The servant.
The servant. That's
He's
right.
the servant.
You get it right.
Close enough.
Dude, the crowd literally they just lose their mind anytime he makes a bucket, particularly when he's doing the one-on-one, just break the dude down in ISO variety, where it's like all of this dribbling, step back, long two, and he's just swishing these shots, canning them. It's insane. And Nembhard, he's just basically abusing the guy. I thought McConnell did a decent job of pressuring him, making him work, even frustrating him at times. But the proof is just there, guys. Like in the first quarter, he was doing his thing. He went out with the injury. He came back in the second half and just dominated. The crowd is reacting to this because he's carried them through an entire series, and now he's doing it again the exact same way. The guy scored before this game, of course, can't not mention this. Before this game, 4 straight games of 40 points, leading the playoffs in scoring at 36.5 points per game. Okay, I'm sure that came down. It's probably closer to like 34 now. Still absurd. The people that had 4 straight 40 points is Michael Jordan, Jerry West, Bernard King, another famous Nick. But he's just been incredible. He's averaging another 8.5 assists. The crowd is responding.
Yet again.
Of course.
He knew Rob was coming back.
There we go.
The crowd is responding to the best individual Knick playoff player since who? Since who? I don't know.
Do you want to do that right now? Because I'd asked you guys before we came on, like, who's on the Knicks Mount Rushmore? Because I think this is becoming an increasingly interesting discussion. Because at a certain point, Jalen Brunson seemed like a guy, he seemed like a guy that like the Knicks can maybe build around, maybe just add some stuff and he would be the number 3. At this point, he is the centerpiece for whatever they're going to do, at least for the fan base. And now I think we're in the conversation of like, where does he stand in terms of all of the Knick greats that have come before him? Who, if you had to come up with your Mount Rushmore, I know we're kind of on the spot here, like who is on your list?
I mean, my personal Mount Rushmore is a little bit different. And obviously a little bit more subjective. Allen Houston and Sprewell and Pat Ewing are automatics for me.
Wow.
Particularly Sprewell, who
Spree's got to be.
Talk about a guy that had a special connection with the crowd at the Garden. It was Latrell Sprewell. This is Jalen Brunson's, second year with the Knicks?
It's crazy to think about. He's already
just
royalty. He's just been ushered in.
It's bonkers, but like, I've never seen a Knick this dominant on offense in my life. They had Carmelo Anthony in his prime, y'all. A guy with a pedigree, with 10 plus All-Stars, All-NBAs, a Hall of Fame career. Carmelo has never been this good in the postseason in a New York Knicks uniform. Even when Pat was at his best, a lot of his impact is happening on defense. He's a center, so he's sort of anchoring the offense. But Pat pretty early in his career for a big man, had developed a perimeter game, a face-up game. They weren't like basing the entire offense around like these, inside out, whatever type of thing. Jalen Brunson's on the freaking Mount Rushmore. Like the 70s guys, Walt, DeBusschere, Bill Bradley, Earl the Pearl, those guys, they're legends. I can't really speak to that. Bernard King, another Knick legend, this is probably the last time a Knick player was this brilliant in the postseason offensively, which again, this was like 1983 or whatever it was, guys. I was not even born yet. So we're talking about 40 years in between Knick playoff brilliance on an individual level. Look, man, people always talk about how crazy Linsanity was and the energy and all of that stuff behind it. These were regular season games against Jose Calderon, okay? At the end of the day, this is something of a completely different scale. It's
Brunsanity. Yeah.
Brunsanity. Let's run with it.
Nah. But it will not be forgotten that Waz tried to chisel Allen Houston's face into the rock over Bernard King.
Well, look, man.
Allen Houston, a dude who I would say will be most remembered in the NBA memory for there being a rule created to waive him without penalty. That is his namesake.
Well,
good
Rob,
player, great waving.
Yeah.
Who should be on the Mount Rushmore if we're not like factoring in the warm and fuzzies from Waz's childhood?
Well, are we celebrating greatness or are we celebrating relevance? Because I think with the with the presidents on the Mount, you can go both ways sometimes. Like, is Jim Dolan on Knicks Mount Rushmore?
No. Absolutely not.
One of the most relevant figures in Knicks history.
Maybe Dave Checketts is.
JD in the Straight Shot plays in the headphones that you put on as you're going through the tour.
To do the guided tour, okay. Bing Bong Guy? Is Bing Bong Guy in there?
Yeah, we need to find out that guy's name. No, but I mean, I think most people would say Bernard, probably.
Bernard, Ewing, Brunson, and then the 4th spot is dealer's choice. I agree with Waz that I think Spree is that guy.
No Starks? No Cole Aldrich?
Somehow not Cole Aldrich.
No Starks. Mason would get some, obviously, New York Knicks fans are going to be yelling at me. Mason would obviously get consideration. He's like an Knick. Charles Oakley, the same, right? Hubert Davis,
Clyde.
not so much. Greg Anthony, not so much. Clyde, yeah, of course. Rick Brunson, not so much. But Charlie Ward is a guy that I hold near and dear to my heart. Chris Childs, right?
Steve Francis, Zach Randolph,
Stephen Marbury, yeah,
Shandon Anderson, yeah. No,
Steve
not
Novak
so
was in the house for this game. They're really bringing everybody
he's a
home.
legend. Steve Novak is a legend.
Oh man, yeah, no, I mean Brunson was incredible. I do think we need to give some love to the other Knicks. I mean, I feel like they need to start playing the Bash Brothers clips from Mighty Ducks whenever Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart does something, because these are the two key stats I think from this game. First of all, Dante DiVincenzo 6 for 12 from 3. Which as Waz tweeted out, just a link, no text during this game, completely changed his 3-point shot. Hart now averaging 46 and a half minutes in the playoffs. These are his minute totals from each game throughout the playoffs, going backwards from this game. 48, 48, 46, 53, 45, 43, 48, 41.
How is that possible? What's going on there?
He's not going to live past 35. I'm honestly afraid for him, but right now he is a legend.
This is kind of what's amazing about the Knicks, though, is, Jalen Brunson leaves this game for a stretch. OG Anunoby has to leave for the entire fourth quarter, and we'll have to see what his status is with the sore hamstring. Not only are you replacing what those guys do on the floor, and they're awesome, you're replacing guys who basically play 90% of the team's minutes. And so how this roster stretches to accommodate those things and still pulls out a game like this, I'm in awe of it. I think a lot of it is Brunson and what he was able to do on that foot in terms of the deking required just to get open every time when you're being denied that way. Beating Andrew Nembhard, who I agree is playing technically pretty solid defense, and yet it didn't mean a damn thing any possession that Brunson wanted to go against him. And then I thought OG, when he did play, gave them so much cutting and in the chaos of these moments, just coming up with random points. It ended up having an awesome game, to the point that when he did leave, Pascal Siakam's eyes got a little wide at the idea of attacking Precious Achiuwa instead. So we'll have to see what they look like without him for full games, and just how they get through 48 without OG in there.
He was magnificent tonight. Even the guys on the broadcast were commenting upon what this guy was doing on offense. It was insane, putting it on the floor, getting to the basket, made a couple of pocket passes, beautiful left-hand finishes in the lane. It was nuts with it. He made a bunch of threes. I think he had 3 3-point makes in the first half. OG was magnificent in this game before, of course, inevitably coming out with what they're calling is a sore hammy. But, man, that had Zion vibes on it, honestly. When I saw it, the way he came up so gimpy on the attempt, could not move afterwards, basically. They had to get a take foul to get him out of there.
Yeah.
That's obviously alarming. The Knicks keep losing players.
I would say Zion was more mobile getting off the floor than OG was. And some of that's the shock of that moment, right? Your leg seizes up, your body seizes up a little bit. We'll wait and see, but it didn't look good, and it looked like he knew it wasn't good.
Tibbs also refused to call a timeout. They had 10 seconds of a possession before they went the other way, even though OG was hobbling. He's like, dude, just stand there in the dunker spot. You just have to cut through. It's the most Tibbs shit ever.
These guys are going to die out there. So somebody's going to go down.
Yes, OG had the type of game, the offensive performance that I think he would like to believe that he does all the time. He had a lot of gripes in the Toronto era, especially toward the end there, where he wanted to expand his game. A very Miles Turner-esque plea to want to do more, even though he is at his best being kind of a straight line, straightforward 3-and-D drive to the basket when he has opportunity sort of guy. But he looked awesome at times here. Career playoff high, 28 points in this game before he went out. We'll see about him. Mitchell Robinson also out. Julius Randle also out. So these injuries are really mounting.
Bojan Bogdanovic also still out.
This is nuts.
Bojan, yeah. It's unbelievable. But we do have to talk about Isaiah Hartenstein, who functionally was the point guard for this team. And I actually loved the tweak that they made early on there, where it seemed like they were playing through Hartenstein at the elbow in order to get Brunson off the ball, to get kind of circumvent some of the harassing defense the Pacers were trying to put against him. Obviously, it helped later on when Brunson was a little bit more hobbled, but Hartenstein, man, this guy just comes up with new parts of his game like pretty much every couple weeks here. I'm just like, I'm blown away.
This isn't new. He's been
No,
this
but
guy.
To this level, though, like some of those dimes were
The 9
incredible.
assists
They were
today
slick.
was
They
kind
were
of
slick.
crazy. The one where they trap Brunson near half court, he gives the pass to Hartenstein, basically sort of foul line extended. No hesitation, whips it to DiVincenzo in the corner, splash 3. I'm just like, just the speed with which he read the defense and knew exactly who to go to the ball with. Just amazing, man. This
Yep.
guy is just incredible. And another thing that he was doing, again, they kept mentioning it on the broadcast, he's providing this like pressure release valve at the free throw line, right? Like he's just staying there whenever guys drive all the way to the lane and the help inevitably comes. They know they have a safety blanket at the free throw line who can shoot that little push shot. Or again, we see it when they call that that false double dribble on him in the backcourt. He's not afraid to put the rock on the floor, guys. Lamar Odom-esque, dare I say.
Okay, all right.
Dare I
Hartenstein
say-
is. Come on, bro.
looking like the new Jokic, except he actually plays defense.
Wow. All right.
Listeners are getting a preview of Justin's Jokic revenge coming up.
Feels good.
But Justin, what was the Hart and Hartenstein collective nickname?
Heart Foundation.
The Hart
The Hart
Foundation. Yeah.
Man, the Hart to Hartenstein, like drive hard into the teeth of the defense, dump off pass is just like one of my favorite combos in basketball right now. Hartenstein was awesome. And I think it was great recognition by the Knicks of, okay, Brunson's hurting, clearly hurting. He's going to have to pick his spots. And yet he transcended that anyway. Where do we create advantages? Because it's not Josh Hart cooking one-on-one unless he's taking it coast to coast off a rebound and attacking in transition. It's not letting Dante try to break down the man in front of him or even running pick and roll. It's making use of all these cutters, like making use of what you do well and the intuitive way that all these guys read the floor. And the fact that you have a high post passer like Hartenstein, it's what ties it all together. It's the mechanism that made a lot of the Knicks offense in this game make sense.